Gopi-janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi-janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi-janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi-janavallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Manachari. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Sri Sri Radha Govardhana Dhari ki, Sri Sri Gaur Nitai ki, Krishna Balarama ki, Giriraj Govardhana Dhari ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service, Text 12. And I think this is the Brahma Samhita meter. Jnanam yada pratinivritta gunormi chakram Atma prasada utayatra guneswa sangha Koivalya sammata patastvata bhakti yoga Ko nivrito harikata surating nakurya Jnanam, knowledge. Yat, that which. Up to the limit of. Pratini vritta, completely withdrawn. Guna urmi, the waves of the material modes. Chakram, whirlpool. Atma prasadaha, self-satisfaction. Uta, moreover. Jatra, where there is. Guneshu, in the modes of nature. Asangaha, no attachment. Koivalya, transcendental. Sammata, approved. Pata, path. Tu, but. Ata, therefore. Bhakti yogaha, devotional service. Kaha, who. Nibritaha, absorbed in. Harikatasu, in the transcendental topics of the Lord. Ratim, attraction. Na, shall not. Kuryat, do. Translation. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? Please repeat. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental. It is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? Purport. According to Bhagavad Gita 10.9, the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. The complete functional activities of a pure devotee are always engaged in the service of the Lord, and thus the pure devotees exchange feelings of ecstasy between themselves and relish transcendental bliss. This transcendental bliss is experienced even in the stage of devotional practice, sadhana avastha, if properly undertaken under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And in the mature stage, the developed transcendental feeling culminates in realization of the particular relationship with the Lord by which a living entity is originally constituted, up to the relationship of conjugal love with the Lord, which is estimated to be the highest transcendental bliss. Thus, Bhakti Yoga, being the only means of God realization, is called Kaivalya. Srila Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayana Deva Paravaranam Parama Astu Kaivalya Sangitaha. In this connection, and establishes that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya, and the means which enable one to approach the Lord is called the Kaivalya Panta, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. This Kaivalya Panta begins from Shravan, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead. And the natural consequence of hearing such Harikatha is the attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics for which a devotee has no taste at all. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive. And in a mature state, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body. What to speak of bodily relatives? In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. There are different modes of material nature, and all mundane functions in which a common man is very much interested or in which he takes part become unattractive for the devotee. This state of affairs is described herein as Pratinivritta Gunormi, and it is possible by Atma Prasad, or complete self-satisfaction without any material connection. The first-class devotee of the Lord attains this stage by devotional service, but despite his loftiness, for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher of the Lord's glory and dovetail all into devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. Srila Rupa Goswami has described this action of a pure devotee as Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Juktam Vairagyam Uchate. Even mundane activities dovetailed with service to the Lord are also calculated to be transcendental or approved Kaivalya affairs. Srila Prabhupada ki Om Jnana Timanandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, but my spiritual master has kindly forced open my eyes with the scalpel of knowledge. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So this word Srila Prabhupada keeps focusing on in the purport, Kaivalya, transcendental, means that whatever a pure devotee, an elevated devotee does, is on the transcendental platform, even if it might appear similar in some ways to mundane pursuits. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Iha yasya hare dasye kamana manasagira nikilasa vyavastasu jivan mukta sabuchate. If one engages wholeheartedly, body, mind and words in the service of the Lord, he's a jivan mukta. Even while moving in this material cosmos, he's a completely liberated personality. What is the secret? Srila Prabhupada also focuses on the term here, Atma Prasad, because it's completely self-satisfying. And even that question is asked at the end of a verse, who could fail to be attracted? Just like we were having kirtan just now, who could fail to be attracted? Who could fail to be engaged? Our entire process of spiritual purification is one of displacement. We swap out something mundane for something attractive. Who needs mundane soap operas if you have Mahabharata? Mahabharata will give you the taste, and it still gives you all the entertainment and the intrigue and the cliffhangers. They're all there, but now they're dovetailed with Krishna consciousness. Or who needs rock music if you have kirtan? Who needs mundane foodstuffs if one has prasadam? So in this ways, devotees engage themselves positively in the pursuit of Krishna consciousness And gradually, as the taste for these pursuits awakens, then the taste for matter diminishes, the attraction for matter diminishes. Vishaya vanivartante niraharyasya dehina rasuvajam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Although for the embodied soul, the soul inside of this material body with all of its conditioning and its senses and so on, the taste, the attraction, the appetite for the sense objects may remain for some time. Ceasing such engagements by getting the higher taste, one can be fixed, one can be resolute, one can remain steady in one's renunciation. If one doesn't develop that higher taste, then it's actually impossible to sustain. Therefore, taste is everything. We just now were reciting Nam Namakari Bahutani Sarva Shaktis. Lord Chaitanya actually laments in this verse that he has no taste. He's putting himself in the position of the common person. And he says, why do I have no taste? Because of offenses. This is the expanded translation that you'll find in the last chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm so unfortunate that I commit offenses whilst chanting and therefore have no taste. So whenever Srila Prabhupada would initiate, and we continue this practice till today, there's always a verse about the 10 offenses, because actually Krishna's name is tasty. If we're in a jaundice condition, perhaps we find it to be an austerity. Getting through those 16 rounds may appear to be an austerity. But as we become purified, we'll actually not want to do anything other than chant. I remember that Bibi Govinda Maharaj spoke once of an interaction with the Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji, who said, "Shall we have a festival of the holy name?" And Maharaj ran and got his mridanga, and the Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji ran and got his bead bag. Oh, okay. We're doing that kind of a festival. It was a different expectation in his mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to have the least capable musically lead the kirtan sometimes. In the same way, sometimes he would mix all the prasadam, sweet rice, kachuris, dal, all up, so that one would not distinguish. He was trying to educate that we shouldn't just be doing things on the prospect of how our mundane senses would be gratified, but we need to learn how to enter into the transcendental taste, the transcendental mellows. Srila Prabhupada would say, if you have a glass of ink, as long as you keep pouring in water, eventually that ink is displaced. Eventually it rinses it all out. There's not even a trace left. Of course, if we're still pouring ink, maybe that's a problem. But if we continuously apply the positive aspects of Krishna consciousness, eventually all attraction for the mundane will disappear. Atasi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriye Sevan Mukhehi Jivato Swayameva Sparatyada. Krishna is transcendental. He can't even be appreciated by the mundane senses. But if we fully saturate our senses, fully engage, leaving no room for anything else, then gradually that natural taste, Krishna actually manifests. And how does it begin? Namadi, with the name, with the holy name of Krishna. We gradually awaken that dormant love. Srila Prabhupada says here in the purport, even up to Madhurya Rasa, one awakens one's original Swarup. In fact, Srila Prabhupada describes it here that by naturally following under the direction of authorities, this naturally culminates in an awakening of the Swarup. It's not that one has to go through some auxiliary process to awaken one's Swarup. This is often when we're impatient, often actually prompted by the desire for status. I want to be somebody significant. And therefore I'm wondering right now, even in an impure condition, am I the one in the picture next to Krishna? Am I that one? Srila Prabhupada would say, first deserve, then desire. Or work now, samadhi later. In fact, The devotee who's got a taste for serving the spiritual master won't have any feelings of restlessness. When does the Goloka train arrive? They're automatically absorbed and feeling great bliss, great satisfaction. Therefore we have these expressions by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nadanam na janam na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmanishware, birth after birth. I don't need any of these things. I just want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Not even interested in liberation. Not worried right now what my swarup is. Just happy to conduct some service, happy to be of use to my spiritual master, happy to be engaged in the mission. Srila Prabhupada describes here that one of the pastimes of an elevated soul, he'll engage everything in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada was particularly expert at setting us up with a very ambitious purpose to somehow transform the world with Krishna consciousness, something that will keep us busy for many, many lives, something that we can be fully absorbed in from the moment we wake till the moment we take rest. This way, all of the other concerns, if we're occupied with this mission, if we're caught up in this mission, all of the other concerns become immaterial, uninteresting. There's a verse here from Jamuna Acharya, a very famous verse, and possibly one that's misunderstood or that's subject to abuse. Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padaravinde nava nava rasa damanandyuta ramtimase tadavadi batanari sangame smarimane bhavati mukhavikara sustu nistivanam cha. Since I've been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. So actually the process of becoming free from sex pleasure is being engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, not spitting. Spitting was a byproduct. Of course, some people misunderstand this and think that the process of spitting, the process of scorning those objects of attraction, that will be my ticket. And actually that's a complete misunderstanding. In fact, it could be argued that if one deals harshly with the objects of one's attraction, that's a sign that one is actually disturbed as opposed to equipoised in some ways. So Srila Prabhupada created an environment in which all souls would be welcome and would be able to contribute according to their capability. So I might leave it here. I know that's a short class, but hopefully it's stimulated. And normally we allow a little bit of time for questions and it goes over a little bit. So Maharaj, would you have any comments or questions? Trustee Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, you always have a question. Sorry, that was probably a little sudden. I should have given a little notice. Any other comments, any other questions? Yeah. I'll repeat the questions, so if someone speaks loud enough, at least for me to hear, I'll repeat them so it goes over the radio. Otherwise it might be super early prasadam today.
Maybe you can elaborate on the Kaivalya principle. Generally when Kaivalya is used, it's used to describe Brahman liberation. But here in this purport that Prabhupada uses in a different way, Kaivalya Pancha, that means the ultimate condition is, the ultimate liberation, the ultimate condition is to surrender to Krishna.
Yes, 5 kinds of liberation, and the merging into the Sayuja Mukti. This is so horrendous to devotees, the idea of losing one's personal connection with Krishna. and just becoming one in quality with Krishna. This is rejected by the devotees. Even in that verse by Lord Chaitanya, the idea of not even that fussed, if I take another birth here and I'm serving my spiritual master, that's plenty for me. There's 4 other kinds of liberation, and I'm going to ask for some help remembering these. Samipya, Sarupya. So Sarupya is having a form like the Lord. Samipya, being on the same planet.
No, that's
Salokya.
Association.
Yeah, being close in some ways.
Shasti is
Having the same opulences as the Lord. So the devotees will only accept these. I believe this is dealt with practically as the first idea in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. These 5 kinds of liberation are mentioned. Those who haven't discovered the attractiveness of Krishna and don't appreciate the wonderful qualities of transcendental exchange with Krishna are involved in neti. They're trying to find the opposite of whatever exists in this material nature. So if they find form and they associate that with distress, if they find activity and they associate that with bondage, then they think that the opposite will be the transcendental position. So this is a poor fund of knowledge, Srila Prabhupada would say, that we are in some ways using our intellect to deduce as best we can what the transcendental world may be like, but we actually have no revelation. One wouldn't wish to exchange that relationship with Krishna for anything, for anyone. Let's see if there's other questions or comments. Manivandana.
Would it be correct to say that these 4 types of the first 4 types of liberation applies to entry into the Vaikuntha planets, whereas beyond that is Krishna Prema and Goloka Vrindavan, that's like a higher level?
Certainly, we sing every Kartik, Iti Diksha Lilabir Ananda Kunde Swagosha Nimaja Tamakkapayantam Tadiyeshu Tageshu Bhakte Chitatvam Puna Prema Tastang Satabritti Bande. So, Goloka, there's not even a trace of awe and reverence. So there's not even that sense of any formality. We regularly hear in the pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam, the cowherd boys would wrestle with Krishna, put their feet on him, clamber on him, steal his lunch. This would not appear to be in convention with following respectful attitude towards God. But they're indifferent towards, every now and again there might even be some kind of little reminder that Krishna is God. He does something spectacular, out of this world. And it just becomes a bit of a head scratcher for a few minutes, and then they forget all about it, and Krishna's just their cowherd friend again. Krishna's just the sweetest boy in the village again. So yes, the Vaikuntha's much more about protocol. I believe that, there may be Krishna, for instance, in Dwarka will still have his queens and so on, so there are forms of the conjugal ras. But mostly it's Dasya Ras in Vaikuntha's. It's awe and reverence. Lord Nrsimha is there. Everybody's watching their step. Not out of fear. There's appreciation. But you don't want to put, a foot wrong in that environment. Whereas Vrindavan has that informal aspect. We're so kind, Krishna's so kind to us. We're so fortunate that he revealed those pastimes just so recently. And Lord Chaitanya came to give us the opportunity to engage in those pastimes. Maharaj was talking the other day that within the Audarya Ras is the Madhurya Ras. So within Lord Chaitanya's mercy mission, there is the opportunity to enter into those higher leelas, those higher relationships with the Lord. That's certainly what Srila Prabhupada is offering us and engaging us in. And he certainly didn't introduce any additional processes for realizing one's rasa. The idea is you just serve Srila Prabhupada's mission from every waking moment, and our consciousness will naturally be uplifted and purified. And then all things are revealed. The Satasi Krishna Namadi, I believe also from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, indicates that once one's senses are purified, all things are revealed. So one doesn't need to do some separate endeavor in this regard. And if one's fully preoccupied in the positive aspects of Krishna consciousness, and there's no bondage. There's another verse here, Nibbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate. That's real renunciation. On the other hand, that kind of renunciation which rejects things that could be engaged in Krishna's service is false. It's a false form of renunciation. Doesn't lead to the same transcendental destination. So Srila Prabhupada even says in the purport here, even mundane activities dovetailed with service to the Lord. I'm fixing a car for the devotees to go on Sankirtan. I'm no longer just a mundane mechanic. I'm mopping the floor, but it's to make way for nice temple activities. I'm no longer just a janitor. I'm engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada's created this massive organization with so many different roles and so many different occupations, so many different ways to engage, that everyone can find something to occupy themselves from dawn to dusk. Other questions, other comments?
Well, I was just wondering, you were talking about how we sometimes want to be the one beside Krishna, and I was just thinking about pride and kind of being attached to, but not in a proud way of thinking, oh, I'm so wonderful, but the opposite, and how to overcome that, maybe you might be betternly attached to a sense of a confidence or do you know what I mean, self-deprecation, and in the sense that's also kind of keeping you away from recognizing your place of servant. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
It's described, Yasyasti Bhakti Bhagavatya Kinchana Sarvaigunas Tatra Samasate Sura, that just by sincere application of the process, all of the qualities, including humility, would gradually awaken. I think in particular mixing with inspiring devotees to have those kind of qualities. Sometimes when you're mixing with devotees who are especially humble, and I believe the word dainya, humility, is especially stressed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One realizes just how obnoxious one's own mindset is from time to time. One instantly has that mirror. It's not that devotee intentionally chastises or blasts. Sometimes their own example of humility reveals to oneself, ooh, I have a long way to go. And it becomes such a compelling characteristic that one naturally wants to emulate. So the other day we're talking about Shraddha. Shraddha, as well as faith, means respect. When one encounters the character of devotees who possess these qualities, one naturally aspires to be more like them. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says elsewhere in the Gita, Sangat Sanjayate Karma, one's desires and ambitions develop according to the company one keeps. So if one is mixing with neophytes, neophytes are often jostling for distinction and to be the best devotee, then chances are one will still get into that competitive spirit. That will be one's association, and that will be and everything will be about virtue signaling. Look how detached I am. Look how elevated I am. Look how many shlokas I know. And there'll be a whole bunch of competing, posturing, chest puffed up activities. And if one is with a pure devotee, or at least an elevated devotee, then one constantly notices those wonderful qualities and one naturally starts to emulate and aspire. I remember there was a devotee, I won't mention by name, but he's one of the early devotees in the Australian Yatra, who was travelling with Srila Prabhupada in a car, I believe it was in Melbourne. And they were passing lots of people outside. It might have been rush hour. It was very slow moving traffic and there were lots of people. Perhaps it was in the CBD. And this devotee was looking out at all of these conditioned souls racing off doing their business and oblivious to the supreme goal of life. And feeling a little proud, we've got this opportunity to serve Krishna, we know what's what, these poor people don't know much. And he was kind of looking around, just entertaining those kind of thoughts, and he caught a glance over at Srila Prabhupada, who was looking out at the same scene with tears in the corners of his eyes. Okay, now I can see what the attitude is that I'm meant to be practicing. So somehow we have to find out devotees. This verse is all about how, the elevated souls are completely disinterested in matter. So if we're mixing with people who are, they have a strong appetite for matter, we may end up that way. We should never think that we're so immune that we can actually afford to be casual in terms of how we mix. I mentioned earlier, if we're pouring ink into the glass, we can't expect that as we add the water, the ink's going to be displaced. So if we're engaged in Gramya Katha, gossip and village talk and so on, then all of the conceptions that those are coming from, it's almost like in little seed form. They're there to awaken our material desires in some ways. If we can mix with great souls, then their Krishna consciousness, their enthusiasm, their distaste for matter, and their taste for Krishna consciousness, we have an opportunity to be infected and catch whatever it is they have. That would be my only thought. And let's open that up because it's a great question. Any other guidance as to how we might naturally awaken our relationship with Krishna and not artificially try to imagine ourselves next to Krishna?
Just also wanted to ask, what if you actually feel like you're too offensive to be in that association? If you know what I mean, is it like a matter you come with a mood of service? Like, if you know that their mood is very elevated, if you know you have a offensive attitude in some way, like, how do you associate with such elevated souls with, without causing them?
It's an interesting balance, isn't it? You might feel unworthy of such association and yet still seek it out. The mind can sometimes be tricky. Sometimes very unhealthy attitudes actually prevent it. If we're feeling I'm so unqualified that I don't go to the temple, or I'm so unqualified that I shouldn't chant, or I'm so unqualified that who am I to mix with these great devotees, then we're actually cheating ourselves. It's a problematic thought process. So it's that interesting contradiction. Patita pavana hetu tava avatar moshamo patita prabhu na paibaya. Lord Chaitanya, I'm the most fallen. Therefore I'm first in queue. When there's mercy going around, I'm the first in the queue. So somehow or other it's that combination. It might seem to be a little bit enigmatic or contradictory, but somehow or other that enthusiasm, that hope. I believe that Dainya is the sixth of the divisions of surrender, feeling unqualified, but it goes side by side with feeling confident about the mercy of the Lord, and so on. So somehow we need to cultivate an attitude where both coexist. Despite our disqualification, we're still having great greed and enthusiasm and lapping up the mercy. Radha?
I just wanted to say that Srila Prabhupada often spoke of causeless mercy, because none of us are qualified for anything. So it's through causeless mercy that we actually are able to achieve any spiritual success in his life. And through his causeless mercy and of being assembled devotees, and through service you can develop a relationship with Krishna and with devotees, well, with anyone really. It's serving someone, you become close to them, you know what they like, so that's how we develop a relationship with Krishna. Through serving him, that's how we develop a relationship with each other. And Srila Prabhupada, through service. And through service we also develop humility, and with those armed with causeless mercy, humility, and getting to know Krishna through service, then there's hope and chance that we can go back. Or if we have to come back here, at least we come back armed to serve, to the power of Krishna eternally. Thank you for your great class.
Maybe there's time for one more, and then we'll retire for prasad. One more comment or one more question?
I would say to that question, Matthew's first question, I can't quote my Shastra, but from my personal experience, I know that if I have faith in the holy name, that Allah is revealed through that worship of the holy name, and where finding a place with Krishna or where you're at, I think a surrender to the holy name will reveal a lot.
There's one verse actually, that one commits offences to the holy name, that is very unfortunate. But the only recourse is actually to surrender to the holy name, keep surrendering to the holy name. But with the mentality of overcoming the offence. So there are many verses similar to that because quite a few devotees ask the same question. Well, I'm committing so many offences, and I remember one devotee came to me, I'm committing so many offences, I'd be better off just leaving Krishna consciousness. I said, that's not the answer. The answer is, and I quoted that verse, that actually one may be committing offences, but when you surrender, you have to, but the only recourse, there's no other recourse, the only recourse is to keep surrendering to the holy name, but just be mindful you have to overcome, not surrendering to the holy name and keep committing the offences, but otherwise if you go away, that's even worse still. Because then the offence will still be there, and then you'll lose the opportunity to overcome. So that's generally the system that the devotees follow, that being mindful, and we can take other assistance, like keeping strong association. I remember one time we were on a walk with Prabhupada, and Charu asked this question. We see even senior devotees, they fall down. What is the reason they keep falling down? That is because of bad habits from the past. And then said that, and because they are weak and they've got bad habits, so they have to become strong. So we keep taking shelter of the holy name, Krishna, in the form of his name, and we seek out strong association. That was more or less the gist of how Prabhupada answered that question to Charu. So seek out strong association. That will make us strong, and keep chanting. So these are the instructions of the Shastras and the Acharyas. So there's different aspects to how one can overcome it. But never give up the chanting. As you said, like a false kind of, how did you put those words you use? A false something.
False humility or something?
A false solution.
Thank you, Maharaj. On that note, Srila Prabhupada ki.